So imagine stepping into a boxing ring, right? You're up against this world-renowned legend. The bell rings.
Okay, my adrenaline is already pumping just thinking about it.
Right. But instead of putting your hands up to protect your face, you drop them to your sides.
Oh, wow.
You jut your chin out and you literally start taunting your opponent.
Which is just an absolute death wish in that situation.
Completely. It sounds insane. But psychologically and spiritually speaking, most of us do exactly this every single day, and we don't even realize it.
We really do. We just walk right into the ring completely unguarded.
Welcome to Zion Recap, everyone. Today we are doing a special deep dive into a sermon that was delivered at Zion CC on May 31st, 2026 by Pastor Roy.
And this is a really, really good one to dig into.
It is. Our mission today is to unpack a topic that, we all struggle with, yet almost universally refuse to admit we struggle with.
Oh, yeah. Nobody wants to admit they have an issue with pride.
Exactly. So today we are talking about humility. And just a quick note, before we really get into the weeds on this, to hear this message in its entirety, you should head over to Zion CC's YouTube page.
Definitely.
Just find the video with the same title, which is Humility, the Key to the Kingdom and the Shield of Faith.
It is absolutely worth your time to hear the source material directly from Pastor Roy.
For sure. So to get us started, can you set the stage for us a bit?
Yeah, so Pastor Roy anchors this whole message in Acts chapter 20, starting right around verse 17. The Apostle Paul is giving this final, really emotional farewell to the Ephesian elders.
Because he knows imprisonment is waiting for him, right?
Exactly. He knows he's passing the torch. And, when you are giving your final words to a community that you love, you don't waste time on trivial advice.
Right. You're not giving them a list of fun suggestions. You give them the survival guide.
That's exactly what this is. Paul tells them how he lived among them, serving the Lord with all humility through tears and trials.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we really need to define our terms here before we go any further.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because the word humility has a ton of cultural baggage. I mean, if you ask 100 people on the street what it means to be humble, 90 of them are going to describe, like, a doormat.
Someone who just lets people walk all over them.
Right, someone with terribly low self-esteem, but the sermon frames it as a shield. It's not a weakness at all. It's actually self-defense.
And that modern misconception is just a complete distortion of the concept. Pastor Roy corrects this by pointing to Romans 12.3 and Micah 6.8.
What do those verses say about it?
Well, in Romans, Paul writes that you shouldn't think of yourself more highly than you ought to think. Notice the wording there.
It doesn't say think of yourself as worthless.
Exactly. It says to have a right estimation of who you are. Pastor Roy put it so perfectly. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less.
Wow, that distinction is it's crucial. It's about accuracy. And I think this brings us right back to that boxing analogy.
Oh, yes. The Prince Nassim Hamed story.
Right. Because of my Mexican heritage and my family background, I grew up completely immersed in boxing. It is such a highly strategic sport.
It's basically physical chess.
It really is. And Pastor Roy told this incredible story about Prince Nassim Hamed, a gifted fighter from the UK slums. It perfectly illustrates how a lack of this right estimation just destroys you.
The whole story of Prince is basically a masterclass in the slow, subtle creep of pride.
So Prince had this raw generational talent, and he ends up training with a guy named Brendan Ingle, who is known in the boxing world as a deeply grounded, humble mentor.
And under Brendan's guidance, Prince becomes a champion, right?
Yeah, he goes pro, he starts winning everything, and he looks totally unbeatable. But as the winning streak extends, you start to see this shift in his psychology.
He stops having an accurate estimation of his own vulnerability.
Precisely. In boxing, throwing a punch is only half the equation. The other half is keeping your hands up to protect your face.
Your hands are your shield.
Right. But Prince starts to really believe his own hype. His pride inflates to the point where he literally starts dropping his hands during professional bouts.
He just leaves himself open.
Yeah, he relies entirely on his reflexes, and he's openly mocking the guys he is fighting, just leaving his jaw completely exposed.
And this is where the mentor tries to intervene, I'm guessing?
Brendan tries so hard to save him from himself. He warns Prince, telling him, if you keep dropping your hands, eventually you are going to get caught.
But pride makes you unteachable.
It really does. Prince is so arrogant at this point that he actually fires Brendan. He tells the man who built his career, "I will be the last champion you'll ever have."
Wow. He just totally cuts off his only source of real instruction.
Yep. And shortly after, Prince steps into the ring with Marco Antonio Barrera, who is an absolute boxing legend.
And Marco is definitely not someone you fight unguarded.
Not even a little bit. But Prince does what Prince does. He fights with his hands down, and Barrera just absolutely dismantles
It
him.
wasn't even close, was it?
Yeah. No, he tags him repeatedly, handing Prince this devastating, humiliating defeat. It effectively ended his career. He only fought one more time against a nobody before quitting entirely.
All because he chose to drop his shield.
He lost everything.
What's fascinating here is how directly that physical reality maps onto spiritual warfare.
Oh, completely.
Pride fundamentally skews our perception of reality. It tricks our brain into believing we are superior to our environment, superior to temptation, and superior to our opponent.
We think we're untouchable.
Right. So what do? We drop our spiritual guard, we stop leaning on our community, we abandon our daily disciplines, we drop our hands.
But comparing ourselves to our opponents or, our circumstances, that's the real trap, isn't it?
It is. If you compare yourself to others, you either become arrogant because you think you're better, or you become terrified because you know you're worse.
That makes total sense.
Humility, that right estimation of who we are, only happens when we compare ourselves to Christ. That grounds us. It reminds us that we are vulnerable, which keeps the shield up.
Okay, so I understand the concept of pride lowering our own defenses. That makes logical sense.
Right.
But Pastor Roy takes it a step further, and I have to admit, I want to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
He goes to James 4.6, which says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Now, the word opposes sounds incredibly harsh.
This does.
We are usually taught that God is unconditionally loving and patient. So is God just sitting up there like annoyed by our arrogance, or is there something more structural happening here?
It's definitely not just mild annoyance. The Greek word translated as opposes in that text is a literal military term.
Wait, really? A military term?
Yes, it means to actively array yourself in battle against an enemy. It is a hostile structural response. God actively goes to war against pride.
That's a terrifying thought. Why such an aggressive response to what seems like just a character flaw?
Because pride isn't just a character flaw, it is an act of treason. Yeah. When you embrace pride, you are attempting to usurp the throne. You are declaring autonomy from the Creator, positioning yourself as an independent power. God hates pride because it's the fundamental lie that separates humanity from life.
Wow. Let me see if I can visualize this mechanism. Pastor Roy uses the imagery of the kingdom of heaven, and it made me think of it this way.
Go for it.
Imagine Jesus has opened this massive, welcoming gate to the kingdom. It's wide open, the path is clear, the entry fee is entirely paid for.
The completely free gift.
Right, but pride makes us do something entirely irrational. Pride makes us carry our own tiny personal gate, install it right in the middle of that giant open doorway, and then lock it.
Oh, that is exactly the dynamic. We want the credit for our own salvation, or our own success, or our spiritual growth.
We want to be the ones holding the keys, even if it means locking ourselves out of the very provision that is freely offered to us.
Which is exactly why Jesus constantly points to children as the ultimate model for the kingdom.
Like in Matthew 18.
Yes. Jesus explicitly says that unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom. Think about the psychology of a healthy child for a second.
They're pretty oblivious to the real world.
Right. They don't suffer from the illusion of self-sufficiency. They don't pretend they can pay the mortgage or fix the car. They exist in a state of complete, unashamed dependence on their parents for their survival.
They don't try to build their own gate.
Exactly. Pride is the exhausting, anxious adult declaration of, I don't need my Heavenly Father's provision. I will manage this myself.
While humility is simply the relief of accepting your dependence.
Beautifully put.
So if humility is the gate we walk through, or rather the mindset that allows us to walk through the open gate, we really have to talk about what happens once we are inside.
Because a gate only gets you in. It doesn't keep you alive.
Exactly. You need a place to grow.
And that requires soil. The sermon uses this brilliant gardening metaphor here. You can have the most expensive seeds, the purest water, perfect sunlight.
But if you throw it on the sidewalk...
Right. If you try to plant those seeds on a solid slab of concrete, nothing is going to germinate. The concrete represents our pride. Humility is the actual soil required for spiritual maturity.
That perfectly connects to Psalms 25.9, where it says, God leads the humble in what is right and teaches the humble his way.
If your heart is a concrete slab, the instruction just bounces right off.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I want to dig into a specific cultural critique Pastor Roy made here because it hit a serious nerve for me.
The TikTok comparison.
Yes,
Ah.
he pointed out how we love getting spiritual advice from total strangers on the internet. We'll watch a random 20-year-old on TikTok dispensing life advice and we just eat it up.
We share it, we quote it, we call it profound.
Exactly. But the second someone in our actual physical life, like a spouse, a coworker, a church member, offers us correction, we get furiously defensive.
It is such a universal modern reflex. And the mechanism behind it is entirely driven by ego and familiarity.
Explain that. Why are we so open to a screen but so hostile to our actual community?
Because the internet allows for curated vulnerability. When a stranger on TikTok gives you generic advice, it demands absolutely nothing of your ego. They don't know your blind spots.
They don't know that I just yelled at my kids 10 minutes ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the people in your local community, they actually know you. They know when you were exaggerating. They see your bad habits firsthand.
You can't hide behind a filter with them.
Right. So when someone who actually knows your flaws offers correction, it requires genuine humility to accept it, because your ego has nowhere to hide.
Pride tells us, who are they to judge me?
Yes. Pride makes us unteachable to the exact people who know us best. And by rejecting their wisdom, we're literally pouring concrete over our own soil. We cut off God's primary method for our growth.
Okay, so we know we need this soil, we know we need to keep our shield up, but how do we actually cultivate this practically?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because the danger here is that you start trying to be humble and then you get proud of how humble you are.
Oh, yes. The humble brag.
Right. It becomes this weird, self-congratulatory checklist.
That is the paradox of humility. The moment you think you've mastered it, you've lost it. To avoid that trap, Pastor Roy lays out 3 very structural, practical pillars for cultivating humility without feeding the ego.
Let's go through them. The first one is anonymous service, right?
Correct. Drawing from Matthew 6.3, giving to the needy without the left hand knowing what the right hand is doing.
And we really have to look at the neuroscience of why this is so effective. Our brains are basically wired for social validation.
Oh, completely.
When you do something good publicly, you get a hit of dopamine. You get likes, you get praise, you get a reputation.
Which is the currency of our entire culture right now.
It is. But when you do something for someone in need, and you ensure they can never repay you and nobody else will ever know you did it, you completely short-circuit that external reward system.
You literally starve the ego of its dopamine hit.
Exactly. It forces your internal reward center to find satisfaction solely in God's hidden approval.
Which leads right into the second pillar, intentionally flipping power dynamics.
This one is tough.
It is. Pastor Roy points to Philippians 2.5 and the story of Jesus in John 13. Jesus is the creator of the universe, but he doesn't cling to that status. Instead, he takes the role of a slave and washes the disciples' feet.
Now, we've heard this story a million times in church, but I think we often miss the sociological shock of what was actually happening in that room.
We do read it through a very modern, sanitized lens.
Right. We're not talking about modern paved sidewalks and people wearing fresh Nikes. We are talking about the first century Greco-Roman world.
The roads were nasty.
The streets were basically open sewers of animal waste and trash, and this society operated on a very strict patron-client system. Everyone knew exactly who was above them and who was beneath them.
So washing the grime and waste off someone's feet
Was strictly the job of the absolute lowest rung of the social ladder.
it was an act of extreme social degradation.
And yet Jesus intentionally places himself at the bottom of that ladder. And let me play devil's advocate here for you.
Go for it.
That sounds beautiful in a church context. But in a modern corporate environment, if you act like the lowest servant, you don't get honored. You get walked all over, you get your ideas stolen, and you get passed up for promotions.
That's a very real fear.
How does this flipped power dynamic actually survive in the real world without just making you a victim?
Well, that is the central tension of the Christian life, isn't it? The corporate world operates on a scarcity mindset. If I give up my status, I lose my power.
Right.
But the kingdom operates on an economy of grace. Flipping the power dynamic doesn't mean you stop leading or you just let people abuse you. It means your motivation for leadership changes.
So it's about the why behind the action.
Exactly. You are no longer using your position to extract value from others. You are using your position to empower them. Jesus didn't stop being God when he washed their feet.
That's a great point.
His identity was so secure that he didn't need the social hierarchy to validate him.
That's a profound shift. It's not about losing your competence, it's about losing your need for superiority.
Yes.
Which transitions perfectly into the third pillar, genuinely celebrating others.
And this is where Pastor Roy brought in some fascinating psychological research from Dr. John Gottman.
Oh, Dr. Gottman is one of the world's leading researchers on relationship stability.
Right. He is famous for being able to observe a couple for just a few minutes and predict with terrifying accuracy whether they will get divorced.
Yeah, it's wild. What did his research reveal?
It revealed that the single greatest predictor of relationship failure is not anger or poor communication or even infidelity.
Wait, really? Not infidelity.
Nope. It is a specific behavior called contempt. When contempt is present between partners, when there is eye-rolling sarcasm and a fundamental devaluing of the other person, there is an 80% failure rate for that relationship.
80%. Wow. But how does contempt connect to humility?
Because contempt is the emotional manifestation of pride. Contempt requires you to view yourself as structurally superior to someone else.
Ah,
Pride breeds a zero-sum game mentality, where we secretly resent the victories of others because we feel entitled to them ourselves.
so if my coworker gets a promotion and I feel this pang of bitterness instead of joy, that's not just a fleeting emotion, that is pride attempting to manufacture contempt.
Precisely. And contempt destroys the physiological trust in a relationship. That is why God opposes pride, because it is a poison that destroys his children and fractures the human community.
So humility is the antidote.
Humility allows you to look at a friend running a marathon, or graduating, or getting that promotion, and genuinely celebrate them over a plate of food, because their success is no longer a threat to your identity.
To bring all of this together, we conclude the source material with a story that shows exactly what these two paths, pride and humility, look like in practice.
The parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector from Luke 18.
Exactly. We have two men going up to the temple to pray. First, you have the Pharisee. He stands by himself, taking up space, and he basically just recites his resume to God.
Look at all the good things I do.
Right. I thank you that I am not like other men extortioners, unjust adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get.
Notice the structural mechanics of his prayer there. It is entirely horizontal. He is comparing himself to others to validate his own righteousness.
His personal gate is locked tight.
Exactly. Then you have the tax collector, and the contrast is sharp.
He stands far off, right?
Yeah, he won't even lift his eyes to heaven. He simply beats his breast, which is a physical manifestation of grief, and prays one single sentence: God, be merciful to me, a sinner.
He possesses a painfully accurate estimation of who he is.
There is no resume. There is no comparison to others. He is fully aware of his absolute dependence.
So what does this all mean? The resolution of this story flips our entire cultural understanding of success.
Jesus delivers the verdict. It was the tax collector, not the Pharisee, who went home justified before God.
It's totally backwards from what the world tells us.
It is. We see this echoed in the Proverbs, too. Proverbs 16.18 warns that pride goes before destruction, but Proverbs 15.33 promises that humility comes before honor.
We have this warped idea that humility equals humiliation.
But the mechanics of the kingdom dictate that true humility is the only path to genuine honor. The tax collector kept his shield up. He knew he was a sinner in need of a savior, and that right estimation saved his life.
It changes how you view every single interaction. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something new to chew on this week based on all of this.
Okay, what's the thought?
Well, we've talked a lot about humility regarding our own abilities and how we treat others, but what about our humility regarding time?
Oh, that is an interesting angle.
Think about it. Every time we stress out about the future or furiously try to control every variable in our 5-year plan, isn't that just another form of pride?
Wow, yeah, it is.
Isn't that a refusal to be the dependent child we talked about in Matthew 18? So this week, when you feel that familiar knot of stress in your stomach, just pause and ask yourself, is my anxiety actually just my pride in disguise?
That is a phenomenal question to carry with you.
We covered some dense material today. If you ever need clarification or have questions about anything you heard or read, please come to small group on Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m.
It's the best way to move this from theory into practice. We would love to talk with you in person and dive deeper into the sermon.
And to catch the latest sermon, join us on Sunday at either 9 or 11 a.m.
We hope to see you there.
Finally, just a quick reminder, Zion uses AI tools to help summarize information, sermons, and common questions. While we work hard to keep everything accurate, AI can sometimes make mistakes or hallucinate.
Always good to keep in mind.
Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.